let's kind of pick it apart. So this week or yesterday, as we're recording, Thomas Tuchel was announced as England manager. Now, Adam, if we go back to our TikToks when Gareth Southgate announced, back to our episodes, which you cleverly put on TikTok because I don't understand how the app works. We talked about how Klopp and potentially Tuchel and, of course, Pep would be options for the job. Now, in those halcyon days, nobody seemed that bothered about a foreign manager. But it looks like we got it nailed on with Tuchel. How do you feel about the appointment before we talk about everybody else?
Look, I think he is a really astute appointment, regardless of the noise that we seem to be hearing. I think for most sensible England fans, they see the logic behind it. I think, let's put in the grand scheme of things, that people seem to be alluding to the fact that there should have been an English manager because you don't see many other nations do like so and follow suit in terms of hiring a foreign manager. But I think the point is we've got to a point where Gareth Southgate was given a lot of time to kind of develop this squad, and rightly so, he develops a culture, but he couldn't get England over the line in terms of that success. Now, there's a lot of things that have been cited. Look, a lot of people were on his back going into the last tournament as well about his kind of tactical approach, his nous, maybe lack of it as well. And in Thomas Tuchel, you've got someone that's not afraid to put his nose and, cause a confrontation in that respect. He will pull people up as well. And that is, I think, what the England team needs is standards. They need someone that's going to get them over the line potentially. And I think there's nothing wrong in terms of this appointment, because if it doesn't work out, Rory, they can get rid of him. That's as simple as that. That's the way it works, unfortunately. But I think, look, this is a guy that is at the right age to kind of develop this style of football with a really talented group of players. Now, a lot has been alluded to the fact that maybe he's quite defensive-minded. But look, people didn't really necessarily say that was a bad thing when Gareth Southgate managed to progress this England squad to the finals at the Euros last time. So, look, I think there's elements of Thomas Tuchel's game that will help England get better at tournaments. I think he definitely understands the culture. He understands the group of players that he's got at his disposal. He pretty much summed it up at his last post for Bayern Munich that he actually prefers the English media, the English in general. So this noise that has been generated is just incredible in that respect. And look, I just think they're absolute arseholes for the way that they've approached it. And it's not just the fan base, it's also certain media outlets as well who've basically put this picture on that, he's not welcome. He's German. That had to be proved in capital letters a number of times. It's absolutely disgusting. It doesn't represent the whole of England, unfortunately, Rory. But the point is, Thomas Tuchel is definitely the appointment that will help England potentially get to that next level, which is aspiring to win competitions. And I feel people have just lost their heads in this process. But yeah, given, I think, had this been Pep Guardiola as an appointment, I don't think we would have seen this amount of xenophobia being on display. I don't think people would have used his nationality as being an issue. They would have seen it as a person that wins things. The reason maybe Tuchel hasn't had that same kind of apathy is possibly because they see him as someone that has won a few trophies, but maybe not necessarily being progressive at every club that he's managed. But I think people aren't looking at the details in terms of what he can do. And I think in the grand scheme of things, he's not going to have the players every time. So he's not going to have them on a day-to-day basis. So actually, this might suit Tuchel and the FA in terms of how they approach it going forward. I mean, what was your overriding thoughts yourself?
I thought it made perfect sense. He's a cup manager, right? Everything he's won in his career, like I think I'm right in saying the one league title he's won was at PSG, which is a league title, but it's PSG, right? But he obviously won the Champions League at Chelsea. He won cups with Dortmund. He is a successful cup manager. I don't think he's a manager that I think of as defensive. I think he's a manager, of who develops strikers. I think it was under him that Aubameyang was at Dortmund. I think he got a very good season out of Harry Kane at Bayern Munich. I think strikers under him tend to do very well. I think the attacking players around him tend to do very well. I'll be interested to see if he tries to use Bukayo Saka as a wing back because he's capable of doing it.
Yeah.
But I think the whole thing, I thought, that kind of the best player on the market, the best manager on the market that isn't Pep Guardiola, right? As you said. So I think we've taken the thing of, the holistic approach with Southgate, which has transformed the culture and has brought the fans closer to the players and has brought in that minimum expectation of semi-finals, finals, and really raised the floor of this team, right? Now, yes, in a perfect world, you would be able to have the next best manager as an assistant manager, and they are the perfect man for the job, and they come in, and they're English, and they sing the national anthem, and they take over, and they are the next man, right? In a perfect world. But as we can see, when we look at people who have won the Premier League, the last person to win a cup in the last English person to win a cup, 2008, Harry Redknapp, right? There is not a massive depth of elite managers, English managers at the moment, right? I think it says a lot that the fact that the main name I've seen linked to it was Eddie Howe, who is a manager who is doing fine at Newcastle. He's not doing fantastically. He's not doing amazing. He's doing fine. I think the only reason he gets so consistently linked to the job is because he's friends with the people who link people to the jobs, right? Yeah. He's been on the High Performance podcast. He has a Huel with fucking Rio Ferdinand or whatever. Like, I think a large part of it is like they like him because they know him. He's a relatively decent manager, but I think if that is Gary O'Neill in that position, I don't know if he's getting linked as heavily, right? I think Eddie Howe is doing fine. Nothing beyond that. If you look beyond Eddie Howe for the next best England manager in the Premier League at the moment, you're kind of at Gary O'Neill, who is currently fighting for his life and for his job, right? I think there's not a huge depth of English managers to pick from. So I think you can't just pick someone because they're English and undo all the work that Gareth Southgate's just done. Yeah. Like, what's the fucking point in any of it if you just hand it over to Harry Redknapp because he sings the national anthem? Like, I just think this is joint up thinking from the FA. This is, we've got to this level. We need someone who takes us to the next level. And this person, I think, does it. The fact he won the Champions League with Chelsea against Man City, they beat Atletico Madrid in that run. And I want to say they beat, was it Barcelona? And I think they conceded 2 goals from the last 16 to the final, right? Like, that was a very impressive run. Obviously, Pep helped them by not starting Rodri, right? But, like, that was an incredible performance from Chelsea. And, like, that win, ask any Chelsea fan what they think of Thomas Tuchel, and they'll chew your ear off, right? Because they love the fact that he got the club, right? He won them the Champions League. He's great in the media. He really backs his players. Like, and he plays entertaining football, right? He plays entertaining, effective football. I think it's a great appointment. The only problem is that not the UK, England, sorry, Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland, because you do not suffer with this problem. England is stuck in 1939. A large generation of our country is stuck in a generation that they weren't alive for. They are stuck with an attitude of a year that they didn't experience, a war they didn't fight in, no matter how many times they tried to tell you they did, and they are stuck with these attitudes. And every time, and this is where the rant kicks off now, as I apologise, but every time, the only thing that annoyed me about this appointment was that I knew we would have to put up with this shit. Straight away, I was like, I can see every headline. I can see every fucking rent-a-gob in the world, fucking Danny Mills, Jamie O'Hara, who fucking listens to these people? And I'm sad to say, Dean Ashton today, a personal hero of mine, was taught, and I was like, come on, mate, just wind your neck in. But every rent-a-gob just pandering to the lowest common denominator of, oh, we don't like the Jerrys though, innit? Oh, fucking Germans in charge of our country. I just find it so fucking depressing. It's so depressing. And no wonder the rest of Europe look at us and fucking piss their sides. And like, I'm in Italy now, right? Obviously, I've not lived in England for a very long time. Every person I meet abroad, they can't believe that we were the ones that wanted to leave them. They're like, are you like, we see how a large section, I'm not going to say a majority, but a large section of your population conducts themselves when they're abroad, their attitudes in general to foreigners, like, and you're the ones, you think we're not good enough for you. Like, and I think this whole debate, without getting too fucking deep into it, although I think I'm beyond that point, sums up a really horrendous part of British culture. And it's really deeply entrenched. And it's this obsession with the fucking war, because it's the only time that we as a country are able to turn around and say that we think we were morally superior, because the rest of our history is fucking atrocious. And I just think it's just really, really fucking awful. And I feel really bad for Thomas Tuchel, honestly, because I think he would have known coming into this job, like, he's lived in the country, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And he would have been briefed by the FA, and I imagine the FA would have been like, preparing for this. But the first fucking question in the press conference, are you going to sing the national anthem? Like, why does it fucking matter? I don't sing the national anthem. It's mad that our country is the only country beyond North Korea whose national anthem isn't about the country, it's about the man in charge. Like, I don't sing the national anthem. I know plenty of people who don't sing the national anthem. It doesn't fucking matter. Like, and that's the first question. Not, are you excited to take over the job? Congratulations. Are you going to carry on Gareth's work? How do you see this? Like, heaven forbid they ask about fucking tactics. No, it has to be, are you going to sing a national anthem from a country that you're not from, because I want to sell fucking headlines? Like, I feel bad for the bloke, honestly, but I really, really hope he smashes it. And my last point on this, before I let you speak, Adam, because it's been half an hour now, I think, is I think I don't know if it's karma or some like mystic force that England will finally win a trophy, but it will be a German who does it. And every single gammon will have to not sleep at night as they wrestle their two brain cells as they try to get to sleep about how they feel about England finally winning, but a fucking German did it for the country. And I personally can't wait.
Look, I think there wasn't a lot of noise when Sabrina Wiegman won it for the ladies, right? It was all seen as they brought it back home, right? And this is the very kind of fan base that will forget about that in about 18 months' time if England, God forbid, win something. I mean, that is the very notion of how fickle the fan base really are. They'll forget about it. But you're right to allude to the fact that I don't know what would have been worse, because at the time, if I remember rightly, Pochettino was also linked. So had it been an Argentinian,
you imagine, Jesus Christ. Well, he wouldn't have been able to go back to Argentina either, by the way. But
he would have been on the Falklands Islands, right? Somewhere in between.
Just him and the sheep. Yeah.
Yeah.